What is up, sports geeks? It's your host, Josh, here back with another episode, joined by Alec. As always, Alec, we are, 40? Yeah, it's being recorded at 8 p.m. on Tuesday. So we are 48 and a half hours away from NFL kickoff. Scale 1 to 10, how excited are you right now?
I don't think the scale can measure it.
So I'm right there with you. So today we have 6 players that are must start players for fantasy football this week. So the 3 that I have here are directly correlated with the TikTok I posted earlier yesterday. So make sure you guys go check out the other social medias, the TikTok, the Twitter. Obviously subscribe to the YouTube here. But we're going to hop right into it. And I'm talking about Thursday Night Football, so I typically give you first reign. I'm going to hop on my first reign here, actually, because I do have somebody in Thursday Night Football, and I think it's a really easy one, too, and it's Rashee Rice. He wasn't being drafted very high. I mean, if you draft him at his ADP, he's a flex play. And he needs to be starting this week no matter what. If you go through his stats last year, which I understand you bring in, there's a couple movements in this offense, right? You bring in Hollywood Brown, you draft Xavier Worthy. Hollywood Brown's not playing in week 1. Xavier Worthy is going to take between 3 and 5 targets away from just take them. I don't think that that's going to threaten Rashee Rice. We have to think about how much that they schemed around Rashee Rice last year towards the end of the season. And also think that, running through, he was a rookie last year. Let's not forget about that, right? And the end of last season, you look at this is targets here, 10, 9, 10, 9, 12, 6. The game that he had 6 in, he had 127 yards. So there's no part of me that looks at that way that they closed last season in an addition of Xavier Worthy, who's never been a target heavy player, and says, yeah, I don't think that Rashee Rice is going to go in a PPR format 12 to 15 points this week.
Especially, Ravens lost their D coordinator.
Yep.
Their linebacker coach becomes the DC. First game actually being the defensive coordinator calling plays. So that'll be interesting, kind of get his feet underneath him early in the year. Rashee Rice is a very big sleeper. And speaking on sleeper, his ADP is 70th. I don't see a way where he doesn't finish as a top 15 wideout.
I would agree with that. I would completely agree with that.
I mean, he stays healthy. This offense should be rolling more than it was last year, you can argue. Travis Kelce's 1 year older. There's just no way he doesn't. At least I think the bottom fell out. He's finishing at wide receiver 18 to 20, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I completely agree. The other thing, too, to think about is that, Mahomes in the 3 years before last year had thrown for 4,700, 4,800, 5,200 yards, and he only threw for 4,100 last year. So last year was 600 to 700 yards less than Mahomes has thrown for in the previous 3 seasons. I do think a big reason for that is Pacheco, in that they actually have success in the run game. But I would expect a bounce back and for him to flirt with the 4,500 to 5,000, yards again this year. It was a down year statistically for Mahomes last year, which translated to Rashee Rice. I would expect Rashee Rice, top 15 receiver, to where he's drafted at is, I think, the best value in any player. And he's a must start in week 1, but we're probably preaching to the choir at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that Rashee. I think this is kind of funny when you're drafting, you're seeing the ADP. They're different on every website. ESPN's is different. He's way higher on ESPN than he is on Sleeper, than he is on Yahoo. And I have leagues on each platform, so it kind of messes with your head a little bit when you're switching through. But when you see that 14 projected points per game week 1, you're like, dang, that's a little higher than a 70th overall guy. So I really like him this year for sure. My first guy, Brian Robinson Jr.
Okay.
So example, I've had a couple drafts where I've gone 0 RB. So basically, he finished as a running back 21 last year in full point PPR. He's a great option for just a better offense in general. Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to be pretty good this year. The threat of Jaden to run on that read option, I think, is going to open a lot of holes for Brian Robinson. On top of, the belief that Austin Eckler is washed. I really do think he's washed. So I think Brian, Robinson Jr. is going to command people think it's going to be a 55-45 split. I could see his volume kind of getting ramped up to that 65-35 kind of deal.
No, I would agree. And I also, one kind of clip that makes me positive in the sense of Brian Robinson Jr.'s receiving upside is the preseason clip where Jane Daniels scrambles, gets hit, and immediately turns and is apologizing to Dan Quinn. And Dan Quinn, as he should be, is livid, right?
Yep.
It is clear that Dan Quinn is very, very clear with Jane Daniels. You do not get hit when running the ball, which I think just translates to dump offs to your running back, right? And it's it's simple throws. It's completing a simple throw. If it's 1st and 10 and I can run for 7 or I can throw it to my running back for 5, I'm going to throw it to my running back for 5. Like things like that can translate to, like, I think of, I mean, while we're on the topic of Austin Eckler, when Justin Herbert was in
Yeah.
his rookie year, right? And I actually remember I had Eckler in a league and I was stoked as soon as, I'm not for Tyrod Taylor's health, but when he had, the whole issues with like the puncture to his lung and everything, because I knew a rookie quarterback throws it to his running back more often than an experienced quarterback does because they just hit checkdowns more. So I think Brian Robinson actually has more receiving upside than people realize as well. So I love that pick from you.
Yeah. Especially if you're going 0 RB. I mean,
Yeah.
you're if you go 0 RB, your flexes and your wide receivers are going to be stacked. So
Yeah. If you waited on like quarterback and tight end and Brian Robinson is your RB3 and you have somebody like a Rashee Rice in your flex, like don't play Brian Robinson over Rashee Rice. But if you went 0 RB, Brian Robinson could very easily be a great running back starter. And then not even mentioning, like a good flex play too, if you hammer tight end quarterback early. So I like that a lot as well.
Yep.
I'm going to head over to Zamir White here. And I know this is a guy that you were really high on, pre-draft. And this is a situation where I understand there's some question marks around him in the sense that we don't know how productive he's going to be as the true bell cow back. But this is one of the very few matchups that I actually feel confident in that because he played the Chargers last year. He had a 4-game stretch at the end of last year where he was the bell cow. And this was the first one in that. And when he did do that, he put up 17 points in PPR. He put 70 rushing yards with a touchdown, a couple receptions. Like, I feel confident that he can do this. The personnel for the Chargers is very similar, right? Offensively, they're significantly worse. And I really think that if there's a chance that he could have a positive game script in this game. The defensive, Harbaugh is going to try to dominate up front, but I just don't think that this defense can stop the run that well. I think Zamir White is a lock for 12 to 15 points as well. And if you're going to get that in a flex, I mean, PPR format here, but if you're going to give me that in a flex, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah, and the Chargers were one of the worst, run defenses last year, the last couple years under Brandon Staley. And for linebacker, they kind of just patched it with. I know Junior Colson's coming back from the appendix. Deion Henley and Denzel Perryman will probably get a majority of snaps at linebacker.
Yep.
Denzel Perryman's kind of smaller. And Dan Henley's really never played before. So it's going to be interesting to see how they fit the runs here week 1. Anything can happen in the NFL, especially in week 1. If this was week 12, probably the Chargers have a little bit more mojo than the 4-7 or 3-8 Raiders eventually. I'm kind of low on the Raiders, but I really like Zamir White this week. You're right. They could have a positive game script, and this is, I'm not comparing him to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is, the game script king, but Zamir White, this year will be very dependent on the game script as you're talking about. And I think week 1, a good jump start to that.
Yeah, I think at the absolute minimum, it's going to be a close game. And so you think about it, if you're losing in a close game, that's where you start to get those dump offs. If you're winning in a close game, he's going to get the carries. So for running backs, close games are just crucial. And so I really like Zamir White because I think this is going to be a close game. I don't know what Vegas has the spread at. I can pull that up here within a couple seconds. But I mean, I do think that this is going to be within a 5-point game. Yeah, Chargers are favored by 3. So yeah, I completely makes sense to me. We'll send it over to you though with your second player here.
Yeah, so kind of the sleeper running backs, I would say, that you should have taken, or you can try to trade for before week 1. Jerome Ford. So there's a new report that came out of Cleveland. Nick Chubb might be out till mid-season. So I really like Jerome Ford to take a hold of this backfield. Sometimes we talk about, guys, if you can make it to your playoffs, guys that can help you win your playoffs. Jerome Ford's a guy that can help you win early and kind of stack those wins. He can be an RB1 for you early. Maybe could trade him week 4, week 5, try to get some value out of it, knowing Nick Chubb's going to come back and at least eat into the share. But I think Jerome Ford early, love him week 1.
Yep.
I know they play the Cowboys, but new scheme, new system. The only linebacker that's really good is an older Eric Kendricks. So I really, really, really like Jerome Ford in week 1.
Well, the other thing that I kind of think about too with Ford is, what you said about winning now, completely agree. But the thing is, like, Cleveland's defense is so good that you think about them getting the Cowboys off of the field quickly. That means that, like, the Cowboys defensive line, like, you think about the wear and tear that takes on, like, a defensive line when they're out there for long possessions and your offensive line just slowly wears them down, right? Like, I was just watching the Stallions documentary here. Like, you think of, like, Michigan from last year, right? Like, outside of the sign stealing, they wore teams down with their offensive line, and their defense got the opposing team's defense back on the field quickly. I think this is what Cleveland does as well. So Jerome Ford is going to have a lot of success. Not even mention the fact that he's running behind a top 3 offensive line in the league. So I absolutely love the Jerome Ford pick. I'm going to send it back to you here for your third, and we'll save my third for last.
Yeah, awesome. So my last pick here, Ryan Grubb is the new offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. Rumors are they're going to run a lot of 11 personnel. So 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wideouts. I really, really like Jackson Smith-Njigba this year. His metrics were great last year for, winning on routes, things like that. I think the only problem was he just wasn't on the field in 2 wide receiver sets. It was Metcalf and it was Lockett. So having all 3 of them this year, an older Lockett's actually missed the last 2 weeks of practice, confirmed he is. But I think JSN could kind of set the tone early. He was the dominant receiver in Ohio State room that had Olave, Marv, and Garrett Wilson. So he can command target share. He has done it before. So I really like him to take a step this year, starting in week 1.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think you mentioned the Seahawks offensive coordinator. I was waiting for the Zach Charbonnet poll or just something out of left field to say to start them. I was gonna, but no, I like JSN. The talent's there. Lockett's getting old, right? You don't spend a 1st-round draft pick on JSN if you don't intend on him being your at least wide receiver 2 in the near future. In year 1, I think it's very similar to what we're going to see out of Odunze this year. You're the wide receiver 3. You're the young guy. You're learning. You're getting reps in. You're learning the system. You're adjusting to the NFL game. Perfect. Now you are the wide receiver 2. You are going to cement yourself as that. And I think that this is kind of a perfect breakout game for him to do that in. So I love JSN there. My last one here, funny enough, I had 2 guys that I believe when we did one of our previous videos of 6 must draft wide receivers and running backs, 2 of those. I believe I have a running back and a wide receiver from that video that you said, both of them, and not me, but you. But I have Christian Watson here. And the reasoning behind this is health-wise has been always the concern. They found something structurally wrong with his hamstrings and fixed it. No longer a concern. That gives me the ease of mind. And you're playing the Eagles. The Eagles last year, their secondary was atrocious. It still is. I understand you get Cooper DeJean, right, representing us, but like he is like Cooper DeJean is not going to come in week 1 and it'll be elite on the field in coverage. And so you bring in like CJ Gardner-Johnson, who was very okay for the Lions last year. You have Keely Ringo as one of your top 3 starting corners. Like you still have Darius Slay. He's older, but he's there. I just don't think that this Eagles secondary is going to – I see them giving up 250 to 270 yards per game through the air, just like last year, and they were second worst last year. I think Christian Watson, you look at the 2 games before he got injured last year to end the season, it was at Detroit and against Kansas City, right? And he put up 5 for 94 and a touchdown, right? You think about that, that's 20 points in PPR formats, and 7 for 71 and 2 touchdowns, which is 26. He went 20-26 the 2 weeks as he established a little bit of rapport with Jordan Love and then was able to actually utilize that. I think Christian Watson, who's had a fully healthy camp, is destined for a perfect week 1 matchup where he's going to take the top off Philly at least once or twice.
No, I love that. I love everything you said. I also love, and I didn't know this, that they actually fixed the structural damage or the structural problems of his hamstrings. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Eagles secondary, it's concerning. Probably 2 of your top 3 DBs are both rookies, Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. That's always concerning. Now,
I did
could be
forget.
great.
I forgot that they got Mitchell. That's right.
Now, but they could be great. But we don't know that yet. So if we had to bank on it, they might not be elite week 1.
That's the other thing too, is like, they could be good this season. I would guarantee in week 1, they're not going to be great.
Yeah. And it's also, this is a very weird game. New D coordinator in Brazil on a Friday. There's just a lot of weird factors to this for like a play caller scheme perspective. This could really benefit Christian Watson because all he needs is one 60-yard go ball or a deep post. And he's arguably faster than anybody on the field.
Yeah, he needs for one time for the defense to think they're in zone, but they're actually in man, or to think they're in man and they're actually in zone. And then he needs one of them is all he needs. And guess what? You had a great week in fantasy. Take him off the field the rest of the times, and he overachieved.
And I will say with Christian Watson, let's play a little devil's advocate here. Week 1, love the matchup. He will be a nightmare to try to guess which weeks he goes off, which weeks he doesn't. Kind of like the Jaden Reed thing. It's just their offense this year. It's just kind of the way that they are. But I do think on the weeks that the passing matchup is good for Jordan Love, you need to be starting Christian Watson, at least in a flex.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too that you have to I think will kind of doesn't directly translate to Christian Watson's success, but I think it could, is the pass rush of Philly. You lose Reddick. Jordan Love's going to have more time in the pocket to throw the ball. As you give him more time, Christian Watson's it just gives him 100 times more of a chance to take the top off of defense. You're struggling to guard Christian Watson for 2, 3, 4 seconds. Try guarding him for 7. That's it's going to be way worse. If you're in man with nothing over top and he runs a 15-yard out route, well, guess what? He's taken off deep, and Jordan Love's it's just so much more as you don't have a good pass rush that can really, really hurt you deep. I love Christian Watson here. I also think that the Eagles' offense is great. And so I don't think this is going to be a situation at all where the Packers are good. They are going to be in games where they don't need to throw the ball very often in the fourth quarter, right? This is not going to be one of them.
Yep. No. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And also you got to think Cooper DeJean vibe, Reed Blankenship also starting at safety. So, might be able to get over the top a little bit.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Any closing comments here as we wrap up week 1 of fantasy football prep here?
It feels like I've been waiting for this day for a long time. This offseason felt a little bit longer than usual.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just so much more hyped up. I don't know. I would agree. This summer felt long.
Just because the NFL has just grown, I feel like exponentially, even over the last couple years, where it's just every game gets 20 million people watching. And it's just, it's like you don't want to miss out. The hypes, there's more podcasts about it. There's more TV shows talking about it, more clickbait about it, I guess. So there's just so many avenues to consume it. I think that's why, it just felt longer because I've been listening to more and more.
Yeah, that's fair. And we've been chatting about it all summer. This has been our probably the most consistent summer of uploading, and that's going to continue for sure. We'll be pretty much every week with maybe a little bit of college football recap, a little bit of NFL recap, but mainly hitting these fantasy start sits. So make sure if you're listening, tune into like the Twitter, be hitting us with start sits that you have, if you have any questions about it, we'd be happy to chat through specific situations. That's the fun part when you have specific situations of, hey, do I start, like we had one on the TikTok. It was like Marv, Cup, Rashee Rice, and one other, maybe Olave, and they were like, they need to start 3 of the 4. And I was like, first of all,
What a
that's a really good problem to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's always a blast to do. So make sure, and then also like make sure we're subscribing. If we go follow the TikTok, that's all the socials. Just makes it us have a little more personalized content, and we're going to be here either way. But other than that, this has been the Sports Geeks podcast. They play, we talk. The NFL is right around the corner. Thanks for watching, boys. Peace.